Hey guys, tonight we are venturing into one of history's most shadowed corridors, a place of immense power and profound suffering. We're going to explore the life of a palace eunuch in imperial China. This isn't a story of glorious battles or grand philosophies, it's a deeply personal journey, a life defined by a single, brutal sacrifice. Frankly, if you were dropped into this reality, you probably wouldn't survive the first day. Then that's not even an exaggeration. It's a story that will make you appreciate the warmth of your bed just a little bit more tonight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world outside your tiny, mud brick home is a canvas of gray. It's late winter in the northern plains, and the wind howls with a hunger that mirrors the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. You are a boy, maybe 7, maybe 8 years old. Age is a fuzzy concept when survival is measured in bowls of watery millet porridge. Inside the single room that is your entire world, the air is thick with the smell of damp earth, wood smoke, and a quiet, simmering despair. Your family is huddled together under a threadbare blanket, seeking warmth from each other's bodies because the fire in the small hearth died hours ago. There's no more fuel. There's no more food. Your father sits silently, his back pressed against the cold wall. His face, usually weathered but kind, is a mask of stone. He hasn't spoken a full sentence in days. Your mother, on the other hand, can't stop her silent tears. They trace clean paths down her soot-stained cheeks as she mends a piece of clothing that is already more patched than fabric. You have 2 older sisters and a younger brother. You all know something is wrong, something more than the usual. Grinding poverty, an unspoken tension has filled your home, heavy and suffocating. A few days ago, a man visited. He wasn't from your village. He wore a silk robe, slightly frayed at the edges, but still a world away from the coarse hemp you wear. He spoke to your father in low tones, his voice a smooth, dangerous whisper. You couldn't hear the words, but you saw the glint of silver he placed on the table. It wasn't a lot, but to your family, it was a fortune. It was enough to buy grain for the rest of the winter, maybe even a piglet to raise in the spring. After the man left, the silence in the house became a living thing. Tonight, you finally understand. Your father turns to you, his eyes avoiding yours. He speaks, and his voice is raspy, broken. He talks about the emperor, the son of heaven. He talks about the forbidden city in a faraway place called Beijing, a place of unimaginable wealth, where even the servants seat better than village elders. He tells you that there is a way for you to go there, a way for you to have a full belly every day, to wear fine clothes, to bring honor and, more importantly, money back to your family. He tells you that you can save them. He doesn't use the word. He doesn't have to. You've heard the whispers in the village, the cautionary tales about boys who go to the capital to serve in the palace. It's a path to escape starvation, a common historical reality for countless pure families in northern China, especially during times of famine or unrest. This is the mainstream understanding that the eunuch system was perpetually supplied by the most desperate rungs of society. It was a trade of a son's future for the family's immediate survival. A brutal, but in their eyes, necessary calculus. But here's a detail that's often lost. It wasn't always just a direct family-to-palace transaction. A whole cottage industry existed around it. The man who visited your home was likely a recruiter, or more accurately, a broker. These men would scout poor villages, pay the family a fee, and then take the boy to a specialized household in a near-by town often run by a family of cutters who had perfected the procedure over generations. They took on the risk of the operation and the boy's recovery in exchange for a much larger fee from the palace. If the boy survived and was accepted, Your family isn't just sending you away, they are, in essence, selling you into a system. Your father explains that you will bring them glory. Your mother just weeps, holding you so tightly you can barely breathe. She whispers stories of your birth, of your first steps, as if trying to cram a lifetime of memories into these last few hours. You don't fully grasp the permanence of the decision, but you feel the weight of it. You are the sacrifice. You are their hope. This is where a fascinating academic debate comes into play. Historians still argue about the level of consent involved, while many boys were too young to understand. Like you, there are accounts of older boys, teenagers, who saw the abject misery of their families and seemed to have made a conscious, albeit horrific, choice. Was it truly a choice, or was it the illusion of one? Born from complete and utter hopelessness, we may never know the true psychological landscape of that decision. As the first sliver of dawn breaks, painting the sky in a palette of cold blues and purples, your father wraps you in the thickest blanket they own. He lifts you onto his back. Your mother presses a small, stale bun into your hand, your last meal from her. You don't look back as your father begins the long walk toward the town. You just feel the rhythmic jolt of his steps and the cold wind on your face, carrying you toward a fate you cannot yet comprehend. The journey is a blur of gray skies and frozen fields. Your father doesn't speak, and the silence on his back is a heavy shroud. You eventually arrive not at an imposing government building, but at a nondescript courtyard house in a dusty alleyway. The air here smells different, sharper, with an undercurrent of medicinal herbs and something else. Something metallic and unsettling. A man, not the one who visited your home, but one with an air of quiet authority, greets your father. No money changes hands here, that was settled already. This place is purely functional. This is the workshop. You are led into a room that is surprisingly clean. The floor is stone, and in the center is a low, wide brick bed. A king, currently cold. There are no decorations, only a few wooden cabinets against the wall. The man who leads you is the specialist, the Dozejong, or knife man. He is not a monster. He is calm, methodical, his movements precise. He has done this hundreds, perhaps thousands, of times. His demeanor is that of an artisan, not a butcher, which is somehow more terrifying. Two strong-looking assistants stand by, their faces impassive. Your father is quietly ushered out of the room. He doesn't look at you as he leaves. You are stripped of your padded clothes and laid down on the cold king. The assistants bind your upper abdomen and thighs with long strips of cloth, pulling them tight. This isn't just to restrain you, it's a practical measure, believed to prevent hernias or uncontrolled bleeding. The specialist then approaches you. He doesn't offer words of comfort. Instead, he looks you directly in the eye and asks a question, his voice even and flat. Will you regret it? This is a crucial, ritualistic moment. Your answer determines everything. You have been coached on this, perhaps by the broker, perhaps by your own father on the silent journey. You are to answer no, or more traditionally, you are to declare that you will never regret it. It is your final consent, a verbal seal on the contract. A whimper, a cry, a moment of hesitation, and they might stop. But where would you go back to a family that has already accepted payment for you? There is no turning back. You manage a small, trembling no. This is a classic piece of historical knowledge, the ritualized question before the act, turning a brutal surgery into a form of rite of passage. It absolves the practitioner of some moral burden and places the finality of the choice, however illusory, on the boy himself. Now for a stranger detail. Before the specialist even touches his tools, an assistant brings a bowl of water. It's not for you to drink. It's hot pepper water. The stinging, acrid smell fills your nostrils. This was a common, if brutal, form of disinfectant. The area is washed with this fiery liquid, causing a sharp, burning sensation that is a mere prelude to what is to come. The specialist then lays out his instruments on a clean cloth. There are not many. The most prominent is a small, curved knife, its blade honed to a razor's edge. It looks like a crescent moon, deceptively elegant. The two assistants hold you down. One holds your shoulders, the other your legs. Their grip is like iron. They don't hurt you, but you cannot move a single inch. The specialist takes a moment, the final, deep breath, then he works. There is no anesthetic, no gentle easing into unconsciousness. There is only a single, sharp, all-consuming explosion of pain. It is a searing, white-hot agony that burns through every nerve in your body, so immense that it transcends sound. You may try to scream, but your throat can't form the noise. Your entire world collapses into that one blinding point of fire. It is swift, brutally efficient. A part of you is gone, not just physically, but a part of your future, a part of your soul, is extinguished in that single, swift motion. The academic world still debates the specifics and uniformity of this procedure. The detailed, ritualistic accounts we have, like the one you're experiencing, largely come from the late Qing dynasty, when the practice was centralized and well documented. Historians question whether this civilized version, with its formal questions on specialized tools, was the norm throughout Chinese history. In earlier, more chaotic dynasties, or in less official circumstances, was it a much cruder affair? Was it sometimes done with less specialized tools, with less ritual, resulting in an even higher mortality rate? The line between a semi-medical procedure and sheer butchery was likely a fine and shifting one over the centuries. The immediate aftermath is a dizzying haze. The searing pain gives way to a deep, throbbing ache. The specialist works quickly to stop the bleeding, applying a poultice of ash and bandaging you tightly. Then, the most critical part for your future health begins. A small plug, often made of pewter, or sometimes a feather quill, is carefully inserted into the urethra to prevent it from closing up as the wound heals. This small object is the key to your survival. If the channel seals, you will die. You are not allowed to lie still. The assistants, their faces still blank, pull you to your feet. They force you to walk, shuffling around the cold room for 2 or 3 hours. The pain is dizzying, but you are not allowed to stop. This was believed to be essential to prevent the body from stiffening and to promote circulation. Finally, you are laid back down, covered in a thick blanket. You are not allowed to drink a single drop of water for 3 days. You drift in and out of a feverish delirium. The world is swirl of pain, fear, and a profound, hollow emptiness. You are no longer the boy from the village. You are something else now, a creation of the knife and the system it serves. Your world has shrunk to the size of your own mouth. It is a dry, cracked cavern where your tongue, swollen and heavy, lies like a dead thing. The all-consuming pain of the surgery has subsided into a constant, dull, throbbing ache, a rhythm to which your fevered mind now sways. But the thirst is a living creature, a demon that sits on your chest and claws at your throat. This is the first and most terrible of the 3 trials you must pass. It is the gate of water. For 3 days and 3 nights, not a single drop of liquid will pass your lips. Time becomes a muddy river, flowing without markers. There is no day, no night, only a dim, perpetual twilight in the small, windowless room. The knife man or his assistants glide in undoubt of the gloom, their faces indistinct in the flickering lamplight. They are no longer your tormentors. They are your keepers. One of them will lift your blanket, his touch surprisingly gentle, to check the bandages for any sign of infection. They listen to your breathing. They feel your forehead for fever, but they offer no words, and they certainly offer no water. You are a fragile vessel. They are attempting to shepherd through a storm, your survival a testament to their craft. This period of forced dehydration is a well-documented part of the process. From their pre-scientific perspective, it was a crucial medical step. The logic, as brutal as it sounds, was to prevent urination, a flow of urine across the fresh, Open wound was believed to be a near certain path to fatal infection. And so, you were dried out from the inside, kept in a state of suspended animation while your body begins the desperate work of healing itself. You dream of rain, of rivers, of cupping your hands in a muddy puddle. You wake with a dry sob, your throat too parched to make a sound. Here we encounter a more obscure, superstitious layer to your confinement. The room is kept deliberately dark and quiet for a reason that goes beyond simple rest. In the spiritual thinking of the time, a person undergoing such a profound, unnatural change was in a state of spiritual vulnerability. You are neither boy or man, a being caught between worlds. This makes you a prime target for malicious ghosts or angry spirits who are attracted to the scent of blood and suffering. The darkness and silence are meant to make you invisible, to hide you from these supernatural predators until your new identity has solidified. The air is thick with the smell of calming incense, another tool to pacify both your spirit and any malevolent forces that might be lurking. This brings us to a stark point of academic debate: the mortality rate. How many boys like you actually survived this ordeal? Historians still fiercely debate the numbers. Surviving records are patchy, and the eunuch system, for all its structure, often operated in the shadows. Optimistic estimates suggest a mortality rate of around 10-20% at the hands of a skilled practitioner in the late Qing dynasty. But other scholars, looking at accounts from more chaotic periods or less reputable cutters, suggest the rate could have been 50% or even higher. Was your knife man exceptionally skilled, or were you just lucky? Did he use a secret family poultice that staved off infection, or was your constitution simply stronger than the boys in the next room, whose pained whimpers fell silent yesterday? It's a grim calculation that history can only estimate. You are living proof of one successful outcome, a single data point in a vast, tragic survey. On the third day, something changes. The knife man enters with a different sense of purpose. It is time for the second trial, the gate of wind. Though it has nothing to do with air, it is time to remove the pewter plug. The assistants hold you gently but firmly as the knife man carefully unwraps the bandages. The air hitting the raw, healing flesh is a shock, a new kind of pain. He works with delicate precision, and with a small tug, the plug is removed. Now, a terrifying waiting game begins. Everyone in the room is silent, watching you. Will the channel you need to urinate be open? If it has sealed shut during the healing process, you will die a slow, agonizing death from uremia. There is nothing they can do. You feel a pressure building, a desperate need. You strain, a whimper escaping your lips. For a moment, nothing. Then, a trickle. It is a stinging, burning stream, but it is a stream of life. It means you have passed the second gate. A wave of relief so profound it feels like exhaustion washes over you. An assistant steps forward with a small bowl. It contains a thin, watery rice gruel. It is the first liquid you have tasted in over 72 hours. The lukewarm, bland substance feels like the most exquisite nectar in the world as it coats your raw throat. You have passed the third and final trial, the gate of food. You have survived. You are weak, scarred, and irrevocably changed. But you are alive, and in this small, dark room, that is a victory. The days that follow are slow, hazy climb back into the world of the living. You are moved from the cold, sterile operating room to a slightly larger, shared space with a few other boys. All of you are in various stages of recovery. A small, quiet fraternity bound by a shared trauma. You are no longer just a boy from a poor village. You have a new title, a new identity that is being forged in this liminal space. You are a Jingsheng Heng, a clean person. As strength returns to your limbs, you are given simple, nourishing food, kongi, soft steamed buns, weak tea. But alongside the physical healing, a strange and important ritual takes place. One morning, the knife man's assistant comes to you, not with food or medicine, but with a small wooden box. It is lacquered black, simple but well made. He opens it to reveal a bed of red silk. Resting on the silk is a small, sealed jar. Inside that jar is what was taken from you. It has been carefully preserved. The knife man's work didn't end with the surgery. He took what was removed, expertly dried it over a low fire with lime powder to prevent decay, and then sealed it in this jar. It is now referred to with a strange mix of reverence and euphemism. It is your Bao-bi, your treasure. This object, the very symbol of your loss, paradoxically becomes your most important possession. You are instructed on its importance with solemn gravity. You must guard this box with your life. It is your proof of service, your entry ticket into the Forbidden City. When you are formally registered as a palace eunuch, this treasure will be inspected by the officials of the Imperial Household Department. It verifies the procedure was complete. Without it, you cannot be officially employed. This is the mainstream historical understanding the Bao-bi. I served as a crucial piece of bureaucratic proof, a physical certificate of your qualification. But there's a weirder, more practical reason for its preservation that often goes unmentioned. Your treasure is also your insurance policy. Eunuchs, especially those who rose to prominence and gained power, were oft unfeared and despised. There was always a risk that a rival official or a new emperor might try to remove you from power by claiming you were a fake eunuch, that your castration was incomplete, allowing you to have illicit affairs in the palace. In such a scenario, you could present your Bao-bi as irrefutable proof of your status, quashing the politically dangerous rumor. It was a physical safeguard against slander in a court rife with intrigue. The assistant places the box in your hands. It is surprisingly light. You are to keep it with you always, or, once you have a secure place in the palace, to store it on the highest shelf in your room, a silent sentinel watching over you. You are told that this is not just about bureaucracy or politics. It is about your very soul. According to tradition, when you die, your treasure must be placed in your coffin with you. Only then can you be reborn as a complete man in the next life. Without it, you are doomed to wander the afterlife as a lonely, incomplete ghost. Some even believed that, at the moment of death, your spirit would be questioned by the guardians of the underworld. What are you? Only by presenting your Bao-bi could you prove your identity and be allowed to pass. This belief system is where historians find a fascinating intersection of folklore, religion, and psychology. Was this a genuine, deeply held spiritual belief, a comfort to men who had lost so much, or was it a form of psychological control? A story concocted by the system to give a semblance of meaning to the eunuch sacrifice. Scholars still debate how literally this was taken. For some, it was undoubtedly a court tenet of their existence, the ultimate hope for restoration. For others, it may have been a more cynical acknowledgement of tradition. But for you, a young boy holding this strange, heavy legacy in your hands, it is simply a fact. This box is your past and your future, your shame and your hope. You spend the rest of your recovery relearning to walk again without pain, learning to manage the new realities of your body. You learn to recognize the subtle signs of infection, the importance of hygiene. You and the other boys don't talk about the surgery. You talk about food, about the strange stories you've heard of the palace. You are children, and children are resilient. But a quiet solemnity now hangs over all of you. You have crossed a threshold from which there is no return. The treasure box sitting by your bedside is a constant, silent reminder of that fact. It is your key to the gilded cage. The day you leave the knife man's house, the world seems impossibly bright. You've spent weeks in dimly lit rooms, and the full force of the sun makes you squint. You are no longer alone. You are part of a small group of boys, all with the same sallow complexion, the same hollow look in your eyes, the same small, lacquered box clutched in your hands. You are led by a stern, older eunuch from the Imperial Household Department. A man whose face is a network of fine wrinkles and whose voice is high and thin, like the whine of a mosquito. Your first sight of the Forbidden City isn't grand. You don't enter through the majestic front gates, the Meridian Gate, where the Emperor presides over ceremonies. You are slipped in through a side entrance, a less auspicious gate in the north, like the Gate of Divine Might. It's a service entrance, bustling with carts, servants, and guards who give you and your small group a cursory, indifferent glance. But even this side view is overwhelming. The sheer scale of it all is beyond anything your village mind can comprehend. The walls are a stark, imposing raid, and the roofs are a sea of brilliant yellow tiles that glitter in the sun, hurting your eyes. It feels less like a city and more like a mountain range built by giants. You are not led into the opulent palaces you've heard stories about. Instead, you are taken to a series of low, gray brick buildings tucked away in a less glamorous corner of the city. This is where the lowest-ranking eunuchs live and work. The air here is a chaotic symphony of smells: cooking oil, horse manure from the nearby stables, damp laundry, and the cloying scent of cheap incense. It is a city within a city, with its own hierarchies, its own rules, and its own dangers. Your first lesson is humility, enforced with swift and painful precision. You and the other new arrivals are lined up in a courtyard. The older eunuch, your new superior, walks down the line, inspecting you like livestock. He explains the fundamental rule of the palace. There are no individuals here. You are a tool, an extension of the imperial will. Your name, the one your mother gave you, is gone. You will be given a new one. Something simple, perhaps even demeaning, like little and little peace, or little Lee little strength. This name is not a gift, it is a label. It signifies your new status as property of the palace. This stripping of one's birth name was standard practice, a psychological tool to sever ties with the past and enforce a new identity centered entirely on servitude. Your first task is to learn how to kneel. It sounds simple. It is not. You are taught the precise way to drop to your knees, the exact posture to hold, your head bowed, your eyes fixed on the ground. You cannot look directly at your superiors, and certainly not at any member of the imperial family. To meet their gaze is a grave offense. You spend hours practicing this. Your knees run bruised on the hard stone courtyard. Any boy who falters, who wobbles or complains, receives a sharp slap from a bamboo switch. The lesson is clear: your body is not your own. Its comfort is irrelevant. Here we find a small, peculiar detail of palace etiquette that you must master. It's the art of walking. You cannot just walk. You must learn to glide, your feet shuffling silently across the floor. Your arms must be held rigidly at your sides. The goal is to be as unobtrusive as possible, to be a shadow that moves without sound. This was especially important when serving in the inner palaces, where the empress and concubines resided. A sudden noise could be startling, disrespectful, so you practice, shuffling back and forth in the courtyard, learning to move like a ghost. Historians often debate the formal structure of eunuch training, while we know older eunuchs mentored younger ones. The existence of a formal eunuch school with a set curriculum is a point of contention. Some sources describe a structured learning environment where boys were taught to read, write, and study historical precedents. Others suggest the training was almost entirely on the job, a brutal form of apprenticeship where knowledge was passed down informally, and survival depended on a boy's cleverness and ability to please his master. For you, in this moment, there is no classroom. The courtyard is your school, and pain is your teacher. You are taught the three great prohibitions: no gambling, no stealing, and no leaving the palace grounds without express permission. You are taught the complex web of titles. You learn to recognize the different colored buttons on the hats of officials, the intricate embroidery on a robe that signifies rank. You learn who to bow to, who to kneel to, and who you must prostrate yourself fully before, your forehead touching the dusty ground. It's a dizzying amount of information, a social map you must memorize to survive. A single mistake, a single breach of protocol, could result in a severe beating or, worse, expulsion from the palace, a fate almost as terrifying as death, as you would be an outcast with no skills and no place in the outside world. At night, you are assigned a spot on a long, shared king in a crowded room with 20 other boys. The air is stale, filled with the sounds of snoring and quiet weeping. You take out your small, lacquered box and place it under the thin pillow. It is the only thing in this vast, overwhelming place that is truly yours. You are no longer a son, no longer a village boy. You are a cog in a giant, intricate machine, and your life is just beginning. In the sprawling, anonymous ecosystem of the Forbidden City, you are less than a speck of dust. To survive, let alone thrive, you need a protector, a guide, the master. A few days after your arrival, the process of assigning apprentices begins. Older, established eunuchs come to the newcomers' quarters to inspect the recent arrivals, looking for potential acolytes. It is a terrifying and humiliating process. Another livestock auction where you are the product. They look at your hands to see if you are clumsy. They check your teeth. They ask you questions to gauge your intelligence and docility. You are chosen by a man named Wei. He is a mid-ranking eunuch, neither powerful nor insignificant. He is old enough to have a web of wrinkles around his eyes, but young enough that his movements are still sharp. He is not kind, but he is not overtly cruel either. He is pragmatic. He needs a young apprentice to run his errands, manage his quarters, and serve him. And you are young, great, and, most importantly, you look like you won't cause trouble. He becomes your shifu, your master. This relationship will define the next decade of your life. This master-apprentice system, or shifu-to-di relationship, was the backbone of eunuch society within the palace. It was the primary way skills, knowledge, and, crucially, social connections were passed down. A young eunuch's future was almost entirely dependent on the status and favor of his master. A well-connected master could secure a comfortable post for his apprentice. A master who fell from grace could drag his apprentice down with him. Your fate is now tied to Wei's. Wei leads you away from the chaotic newcomers, back to his own small, relatively private room. It is not luxurious, but it is a world away from the crowded dormitory. He has his own bed, a small table, and a chest for his belongings. This is where your real education begins. Your first duty is to serve him personally. You wait before him to fetch hot water for his morning wash. You serve him his meals, standing silently by while he eats, ready to refill his tea. You learn to wash his robes by hand, to polish his boots, and to keep his small room impeccably clean. This is the foundation of your training: absolute, unquestioning service. It's in these moments that you learn the unwritten rules of the palace. Wei is a constant stream of commentary and correction. Don't let the teacup touch the pot when you pour. It's clumsy. Walk behind me. 3 paces back, never to the side. When you deliver a message, repeat it back to me exactly as I said it. Don't add a single word. He teaches you how to be invisible, how to anticipate needs before they are spoken. He teaches you how to listen not just to what is said, but to what is left unsaid. Who is in favor with the emperor? This week which concubine received a gift which minister looked displeased. After his audience, information is the currency of the palace, and Wei schools you in its collection. Here's a peculiar, almost sweet, aspect of this otherwise harsh relationship. As his apprentice, you are expected to care for Wei in his old age. Part of your duty is to massage his aching back and legs at the end of the day. Eunuchs suffered from a variety of ailments, including osteoporosis and joint pain due to their hormonal imbalance. This daily massage was not just a luxury, it was a necessity. And in this act of service, a strange intimacy can form. It's one of the few times you are allowed physical contact that isn't a punishment. He might, in these quiet moments, share a story from his own youth, a rare crack in his stern facade. However, the nature of this Shifu-to bond is a topic of historical debate. Was it purely a master-servant dynamic based on pragmatism and survival, or did it sometimes evolve into a genuine, familial, father-son relationship? There are accounts of deep loyalty and affection, with apprentices mourning their masters like real fathers dedicating their lives to upholding their legacy. But there are also countless stories of exploitation and abuse, of masters treating their apprentices as disposable servants, working them to the bone and discarding them if they made a mistake. The reality, for most, likely lay somewhere in between. Your relationship with Wei is one of mutual dependence. You provide him with loyal labor, and he provides you with a precarious foothold in this dangerous world. One evening, Wei decides to test you. He gives you a small, sealed note and tells you to deliver it to another eunuch in a distant part of the palace. He gives you precise instructions on the route to take. Do not deviate, he warns, as you hurry through the labyrinthine corridors. Another, older eunuch stops you. He offers you a sweet cake, a rare treat. He asks you where you are going, who the note is for. Your stomach growls, and your heart pounds. You remember Wei's cold eyes. You politely refuse the cake, bow your head, and say you are on an urgent errand for your master. You continue on your designated path without another word. When you return, Wei is waiting. He already knows what happened. The other eunuch was his friend. It was a loyalty test. You passed. A flicker of something that might be approval crosses his face. You have learned your first, most important lesson in the Forbidden City. Your loyalty belongs to one person and one person only, your master. Your days fall into a rhythm, dictated not by the sun, but by the ringing of bells and the endless list of chores. Your life is a loop of repetitive, often mind-numbing tasks. The concept of a day off does not exist. Your world is one of constant motion, of service from the moment you wake in the pre-dawn chill until you collapse onto your thin mattress late at night. You are a low-ranking eunuch, a ZASD by Tarjian, a eunuch of miscellaneous duties. This is the bottom rung of the ladder, and your work reflects it. Your day begins before the first hint of light streaks the sky. You and dozens of other young eunuchs shuffle out of your barracks into the cold, dark courtyards. Your first job is often sweeping. The Forbidden City is vast, a sprawling complex of over 9 Daro rooms and countless courtyards. It must be immaculate, so you sweep. You sweep the stone pathways, the verandas, the vast open spaces where morning ceremonies will later take place. You use a long bamboo broom, and the rhythmic of dozens of brooms scraping against stone is the palace's morning chorus. After sweeping, there is water to be hauled from the wells, heavy wooden buckets that make your shoulders ache and your hands raw. This water is for cleaning, for the kitchens, for the gardens. Then there are the lamps. Hundreds upon hundreds of oil lamps and lanterns throughout the palace need to be collected, cleaned of soot, refilled with oil, and their wicks trimmed. It's a greasy, thankless job that stains your hands and clothes with the smell of old smoke. This is the standard historical image of a young eunuch's life: manual labor. Cleaning, culling, serving. But there's a particularly unpleasant task that highlights the less glamorous side of palace life: waste disposal. The Forbidden City, for all its grandeur, had no sewer system or modern toilets. The imperial family and high-ranking concubines used ornate, portable commodities, often filled with fragrance and or sawdust. It is your job, and the job of others like you, to collect these official buckets, carry them to designated collection points near the outer walls, and clean them for reuse. It is a daily, humbling reminder of your station. One of your most nerve-wracking tasks is tending to the braziers. In the winter, the vast, drafty halls of the palace are heated by large bronze or iron braziers filled with burning charcoal. You must keep them filled, but you must also be incredibly careful. The charcoal used was a special, smokeless variety, but the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning was ever present. Palace records are filled with incidents of officials, eunuchs, and even members of the imperial family being sickened or even dying from poorly ventilated braziers. You learn to watch the flame, to ensure proper airflow, a skill that is literally a matter of life and death for those you serve. Now for a peculiar, almost comical detail of your daily routine reading. The grand courtyards of the Forbidden City were paved with meticulously fitted bricks, but nature always finds a way. Tiny blades of grass and weeds would poke through the cracks. They were considered an unsightly marring of the palace's perfection. So, you and other young eunuchs would spend hours on your hands and knees, under the hot sun, using small knives to meticulously scrape out every single offending green shoot. It's a task of Sisyphean absurdity, trying to impose perfect, sterile order on an uncooperative natural world. Historians often debate the level of specialization among these low-ranking eunuchs. Were you assigned a specific set of tasks permanently, becoming the lamp boy or the brazier boy? Or was it a more fluid system where you were part of a labor pool, assigned different duties daily based on the needs of the palace? The reality was likely a mix of both. Certain departments, like the kitchens or the stables, had dedicated eunuch staff, but for general maintenance and cleaning, a large, flexible workforce was essential. Your master, Wei, might be able to pull some strings to get you a more desirable chore, like tending to the library instead of the commodities. But for the most part, you go where you are told. You learn to find small moments of respite. A stolen minute behind a decorative rockery to catch your breath. A shared joke whispered with another boy while scrubbing a floor. A joke that is instantly silenced when a superior eunuch rounds the corner. You learn that work is not just about the task itself, but about being seen working. The appearance of diligence is as important as diligence itself. When a supervisor is present, you scrub harder, you sweep faster. When he is gone, you allow your weary muscles a moment's rest. Your hands, once the soft hands of a child, are now calloused and scarred. Your back has a perm-on intake. You are perpetually tired, but you are also becoming stronger, tougher. You are learning the geography of the palace, the rhythm of its life. You are no longer the terrified newcomer. You are a part of the machine, a small but functioning gear. And in the ruthless world of the Forbidden City, to be functional is to be alive. Your home is not a place of comfort, it is a space of storage. After a long day of relentless chores, you return to the eunuch's quarters, a series of long, low buildings arranged in stark, functional rows. This area is known as the Jingshangfang, or Chamber of the Clean Bodies, a name that is both literal and deeply ironic. It is situated in a less desirable part of the Forbidden City, far from the perfumed air of the inner court, tucked away where its inhabitants won't offend the eyes or noses of their betters. You enter a long, narrow room that you share with 30 or 40 other eunuchs of similar low rank. The defining feature of the room is the kang, a massive, brick platform bed that runs the entire length of one wall. In the winter, a small fire is lit in a chamber beneath it, and the heat radiates upwards through the brick, providing a communal warmth that is one of the few comforts you have. There are no partitions, no privacy. You are assigned a specific spot on this platform, barely wider than your shoulders. This is your entire personal space. You sleep pressed against your neighbors, the air thick with the smell of sweat, unwashed bodies, and the lingering scent of the day's labor. Your belongings are meager. You have 1 or 2 spare sets of the coarse blue or gray robes that are your uniform, a thin blanket, and a small pillow, often filled with dried husks. And, of course, you have your Balbi box. This precious item is your greatest source of anxiety in these crowded conditions. Theft is a constant threat. While other eunuchs are unlikely to want your worn robes, the Balbi is different. A malicious rival could steal it, effectively destroying your future and your afterlife. You've heard stories of eunuchs hiding their boxes in secret nooks in the walls, or even burying them under loose floorboards. You keep yours wrapped in a cloth and tucked under your pillow, sleeping with one hand on it. It's the historical reality of this system. While the box was spiritually priceless to the individual, to others it could be a tool of leverage or simply an objective cruel sport. Now for a specific, and rather unpleasant, detail about your living conditions pests. These crowded, often unsanitary barracks were a paradise for rats, lice, and bedbugs. You learn to shake out your bedding vigorously before you lie down. Though it does little good, you fall asleep to the sound of scratching in the walls and wake up with fresh, itchy bites. It's a constant, irritating reminder of your low status, a physical affliction that mirrors the social one. The hierarchy of the palace is starkly reflected in the living quarters. While you are crammed onto a communal king, your master, Wei, has a private room. High-ranking eunuchs, the ones who serve the emperor directly or manage entire departments, have their own multi-room apartments, sometimes even small, private courtyards. They have servants of their own, younger eunuchs like you, fine furniture, and silk bedding. The disparity is a powerful motivator. You see their comfort, and you understand that the only way out of this squalor is to climb the ladder, to gain favor, to earn a better place to sleep. This vast difference in living standards fuels a continuous debate among historians. How much of a community truly existed among the eunuchs? Were they a unified brotherhood, bound by their shared fate, or were they a fragmented, ruthlessly competitive society where everyone was pitted against each other? The answer is likely both. On the one hand, there was a shared culture. Eunuchs had their own slang, their own patron deities like the warrior Guan Yu, paradoxically a symbol of masculinity, and a deep understanding of each other's unique physical and emotional challenges. You might share a whispered complaint with the boy next to you on the kang, a moment of genuine solidarity. But, on the other hand, the system was designed to foster competition. There were a limited number of desirable positions. Gaining one meant someone else did not. This bred suspicion, jealousy, and betrayal. The boy sleeping next to you tonight could be the one who reports your minor mistake to a superior tomorrow, hoping to gain a small advantage. You learn to be cautious, to keep your thoughts to yourself, and to trust no one completely, not even your own brothers. Then the evening, before sleep, the kang is a low hum of activity. Some eunuchs gamble with dice made from bone, even though it's forbidden. Some practice their calligraphy on scraps of paper, hoping to get a position as a clerk. Others simply sit in silence, their faces illuminated by the dim light of a single oil lamp, their expressions lost and weary. You might see an older eunuch quietly weeping, perhaps mourning a family he can never see again, or a life he can never have. You learn to ignore it. Sympathy is a luxury you cannot afford. You lie down on your hard-won patch of brick, pulling the thin blanket up to your chin. You listen to the cacophony of coughs, snores, and murmurs that fill the room. This is your home. It is not a place of rest, but a holding pen, a place to recover just enough strength to face another identical day of labor. And as you drift off, you dream not of glory or riches, but of a small, quiet room of your own. As months turn into years, you begin to notice changes in yourself that go far beyond the calluses on your hands. The surgery you endured as a boy was not the starting point of a lifelong physical transformation. You are living through the consequences of a radical hormonal shift, and it is remaking you from the inside out. The most obvious change is your voice. When you first arrived, your voice was that of a child, but as your peers in the outside world would be experiencing their voices cracking and deepening into the tones of manhood, yours stays high. It doesn't remain a child's voice. However, it settles into a unique register higher than a man's, but often with a thin, ready, or slightly nasal quality that is instantly recognizable. This voice becomes a permanent marker of your identity. Outside the palace walls, The sound of it alone is enough to draw stares and stickers. It is the sound of a eunuch. Then there is the matter of your face. You don't grow facial hair, while other men your age begin to sprout beards and mustaches. Your chin and upper lip remain smooth, soft, and boyish. Your skin tends to stay finer, less weathered. Over time, this lack of male hormones can lead to a characteristic puffy or rounded appearance in the cheeks. Wrinkles form in different patterns, often fine lines around the eyes and mouth, rather than the deep furrows of other men. You will age, but you will age differently. This is a universally understood consequence of castration, a core part of the historical record. Your body shape also begins to shift. You don't develop the broad shoulders and muscular build of a typical adolescent male. Instead, your body retains a more prepubescent form, with narrower shoulders and wider hips, a common and often cruel caricature of eunuchs emphasizes this physical trait. Furthermore, you are prone to gaining weight, especially around the abdomen and hips, a direct result of the hormonal imbalance. You might see older eunuchs who are quite portly, a physical state that was sometimes mistaken for wealth and ease, but was, in reality, a physiological side effect of their condition. Here's a lesser-known, more intimate physical consequence. You have to manage a change in your body's scent. The absence of testosterone means your sweat glands are less active and produce fewer of the oils and compounds that create typical adult male body odor. As a result, eunuchs were often described as having very little body scent, or a scent that was more akin to that of a child. In the perfumed, close quarters of the inner court, this was considered a significant advantage. A sweaty, strong-smelling male servant would have been offensive to the delicate sensibilities of the empress or concubines. Your clean scent is another aspect of your suitability for service in the most intimate spaces of the palace. The long-term health consequences of your condition are a subject of ongoing historical and medical discussion. How did this profound endocrine disruption affect their lifespan and overall health? While some eunuchs lived to a very old age, historical data and modern medical understanding suggest they were highly susceptible to a range of health problems. Osteoporosis was rampant. Without testosterone to maintain bone density, their bones became brittle and prone to fractures. This is why you see so many older eunuchs walking with a stoop or a shuffle. They are often in chronic pain from their fragile skeletons. Dental problems were also common, as were a host of metabolic issues. But the most significant and debated consequence is the psychological one. Historians and psychologists still argue about the precise mental and emotional impact. Was there a specific eunuch personality? They were often stereotyped in historical texts, usually written by their political rivals, the scholar officials, as being greedy, paranoid, and prone to fits of rage. Is this an accurate psychological profile? A predictable result of their trauma, powerlessness, and hormonal state, or is it a vicious slander? A political caricature designed to dehumanize a group that was seen as a threat. You don't think in these academic terms. You live it. You feel the moments of frustration that seem to boil over into unprovoked anger. You experience a deep-seated melancholy that can descend without warning. You feel a constant, gnawing sense of being less than, a feeling reinforced every time you catch your reflection or hear the sound of your own voice. You are living in a body that is a paradox, ageless in some ways, prematurely old in others. It is a constant, physical reminder of the sacrifice that was made for you and to you. Your body is no longer a private matter. It is a public spectacle, a testament to the power of the throne, and you must carry its visible and invisible burdens every single day. Years of sweeping floors and trimming lamp wicks have passed. You are no longer a boy, but a young man in your late teens or early 20s. Your master, Wei, has aged, and through your diligent, loyal service, you have earned his trust. He begins to assign you more delicate tasks, moving you from the world of manual labor to the fringes of the world of influence. This is the moment every ambitious young eunuch waits for. Wei is a sub-department manager in the Directorate of Palace Delicacies, the vast and complex organization responsible for all the food and drink consumed within the Forbidden City. It's not the most powerful directorate, but it's a strategic one. Food is sustenance, but in the palace, it is also a tool of power, favor, and sometimes poison. Wei secures you a position as a record keeper within his department. Your new job is to sit in a small office and, with a fine brush, record the daily menus for the lesser consorts and palace ladies. This is a huge step up. You are no longer spending your days on your knees weeding courtyards. You are now a wielder of the brush, a man of letters. Literacy was a significant dividing line in the eunuch hierarchy. While many eunuchs remained illiterate laborers their entire lives, those who could read and write had a path to advancement. They could become clerks, secretaries, or administrators, positions that required a mind, not just a body. This is the common understanding of how a eunuch began his climb, by moving from physical labor to administrative work. Your new position gives you a different kind of access. You now see the daily flow of palace life through the lens of food. You learn that the honored concubine received an extra dish of winter melon soup, a sign of the emperor's favor. You note that the noble Lady Xiao was restricted to a bland diet of plain rice and vegetables, a clear signal of her fall from grace. You learn to read the subtle language of the imperial kitchen. You see the cooks and tasters who work under immense pressure, knowing a single misplaced spice or an undercooked piece of meat could cost them their lives. It is in this new role that you stumble upon a more peculiar and hidden aspect of your directorate's function, the records of imperial stool. After the emperor ate a meal, a team of dedicated physicians and eunuchs would meticulously inspect his bowel movements. The results were recorded in excruciating detail: color, consistency, smell, and cross-referenced with the food he had eaten. This was not a bizarre obsession. It was the pinnacle of imperial preventative medicine. It was believed that the emperor's digestion was a direct reflection of his health and, by extension, the health of the entire empire. Your proximity to the kitchens means you sometimes see the solemn-faced eunuchs carrying the covered imperial commode to the physicians, and you hear the hushed whispers about the dragon's body. You begin to understand the true nature of power in the Forbidden City. It is not about grand pronouncements or military might. It is about proximity. The closer you are to the emperor, the more powerful you are. The eunuchs who sweep the outer courtyards will never have influence. The eunuchs who manage the emperor's wardrobe, who read to him at night, who deliver his meals, they are the ones who have his ear. They can whisper a word of praise for a minister or a seed of doubt about a rival. They control the flow of information to the Son of Heaven. Your new goal is no longer just a private room, it is to get closer to the dragon's throne. This brings us to a major historical debate, the so-called eunuch menace. Official histories, written by Confucian scholar officials, are filled with condemnations of powerful eunuchs who usurped imperial authority and brought ruin to dynasties. They are portrayed as a corrupting influence, whispering poison into the emperor's ear. But was this an accurate portrayal, or was it professional jealousy? Scholar officials had to pass grueling civil service exams and work their way up a rigid bureaucracy to gain access to the emperor. The clever, charismatic eunuch, by virtue of his domestic role, could achieve a level of intimacy and trust with the emperor that no official could ever hope for. Historians today try to offer a more balanced view. They argue that eunuchs and scholar officials were to competing power blocks within the court. When the emperor was strong and decisive, he could play these two factions against each other, maintaining balance. But when the emperor was weak, young, or disinterested in governing, a power vacuum was created, and the eunuch establishment, being physically closest to him, was naturally positioned to fill it. They were not inherently evil, they were political survivors playing a dangerous game. You are not yet a player in that grand game. but you are finally learning the rules. You practice your calligraphy until your fingers ache. You memorize the names and ranks of every important person in the palace. You are polite and deferential to everyone, but you watch and you listen. You learn from Wei how to build a network of allies, doing small favors for other eunuchs, sharing trivial but interesting pieces of information. You are building your own small web of influence. One day, a high-ranking eunuch who serves in the emperor's personal study praises the clarity of your handwriting on a menu report. He asks Wei your name. It's a small moment, a tiny flicker of opportunity, but it is the first real glimmer of a path out of the shadows and into the blinding light of the inner court. Your moment arrives, not with a clap of thunder, but with a quiet request. The high-ranking eunuch who praised your handwriting, a man named Chi Fan, needs a new junior assistant. His previous one made a fatal error. He was caught stealing a small jade paperweight from the emperor's study. He was not seen again. Chi Fan remembers your clear script and your Master Weiss recommendation. With a mixture of pride and reluctance, Wei releases you into Anne's service. You are moving up. You are now assigned to the emperor's personal quarters, the heart of the forbidden city and the center of the world. Your new life is one of hushed silence and intense pressure. The hall of mental cultivation, where the emperor often lives and works, is nothing like the bustling, noisy service areas you are used to. Here, the air itself seems to be made of gold, dust, and tension. The floors are covered with thick silk carpets that swallow the sound of your footsteps. The air is fragrant with the scent of rare incense and old books. Your job is to be a ghost, a silent pair of hands. You grind ink, you tidy scrolls, you hold lanterns, and you stand motionless for hours, waiting to be called. You are now a listener. This becomes your most important and most dangerous skill. While you are grinding the ink stick on the stone, the emperor is meeting with his grand secretary. You are not supposed to be listening. Your eyes are dutifully fixed on your task, but your ears absorb everything. You hear about border disputes in the northwest, about the rising price of rice in the southern provinces, about which official is being praised and which is being subtly admonished. You become a living repository of state secrets. This is the classic role of the palace eunuch, to be the emperor's eyes and ears, because you have no family ties to the outside world, no regional loyalties, and no independent power base and theories. You are considered more trustworthy than the scholar officials, who are often entangled in a web of clan and political alliances. The emperor can speak more freely in your presence, knowing you are, in essence, an extension of his own household. You are his house slave, and therefore, utterly dependent on him. But here you discover a strange, almost counterintuitive detail of your new job. You must learn the art of not hearing. There are times when the emperor is having a heated argument with a minister, or a deeply personal conversation with a trusted advisor. In these moments, you must perfect the appearance of complete oblivion. Your face must be a placid mask. Your posture must remain relaxed but respectful. You must radiate an aura of being nothing more than a piece of furniture. To show any sign of interest, a flicker of the eyes, a tensing of the shoulders, would be a catastrophic breach of trust. It would mean you are a person with your own thoughts, not a tool, so you learn to hear everything and to appear to hear nothing. Your new master, Chi Fan, schools you in the art of intelligence management. After a meeting, he will quietly ask you, "What did you hear?" You are to report the facts, verbatim if possible, without any personal interpretation or opinion, and then decides what information is valuable, what needs to be passed on to other allies in the eunuch hierarchy, what needs to be subtly leaked to a rival to put them off balance. You are the raw data collector, he is the analyst. This is where academic historians clash over the nature of eunuch intelligence. Was it a sophisticated, organized spy network, a kind of internal secret service that actively shaped policy, or was it more of an informal system of gossip and eavesdropping? Powerful, but ultimately reactive and opportunistic. Some accounts especially those from dynasties with notoriously powerful eunuchs like the Ming, suggest the existence of a highly structured Eastern depot. A eunuch-led secret police with the power to arrest, interrogate, and even execute officials. Other scholars argue this was the exception, not the rule, and that for most of history, eunuch power was less formal, based on the personal trust of the emperor. You are beginning to understand the immense power of this soft intelligence. One day, you overhear the emperor complain idly about the poor quality of the silk being sent as tribute from Suzhou. It's a passing comment, the minor annoyance. You report it to Chief An, and, in turn, discreetly informs another high-ranking eunuch who has a connection to a rival silk merchant family. Within weeks, a new tribute of exceptionally fine silk arrives at the palace from the rival family. The emperor is pleased. The original Suzhou official is reprimanded. Favors are owed. The thread of information, seemingly insignificant, has been woven into the tapestry of court politics, shifting fortunes and creating obligations. You are no longer just a servant. You are a conduit for information, and therefore, a conduit for power. You are still deferential, still silent, still bowing and kneeling. But when you walk through the palace corridors now, other eunuchs and even low-ranking officials look at you differently. They know where you work. They know you stand in the presence of the Son of Heaven. They know you are a man who hears things. And in the Forbidden City, a man who hears things is a man to be feared. With your new position in the Emperor's study comes not just proximity to power, but proximity to wealth. For the first time in your life, you have a steady, official salary. It's not a large sum, paid out in silver taels and bolts of silk by the Imperial Household Department, but it's more money than your family ever saw in a year. However, you quickly learn that your official salary is merely a pittance, a drop in the ocean compared to the river of gray income that flows through the palace. Your master, Chief An, is an expert at navigating these murky financial waters, and he begins to teach you. The system is built on a complex web of gratuities, commissions, and outright bribes, all veiled in the polite language of gift-giving and respect. This is the mainstream understanding of eunuch corruption using their official positions to enrich themselves. Since you have no hope of a legitimate family or heirs, the accumulation of personal wealth becomes one of the few available outlets for ambition and security. Your first lesson comes in the form of a visiting provincial official. He has come to the capital for an audience with the emperor and is desperate to make a good impression. He knows that Chief and controls the schedule. Before his audience, the official's aide discreetly visits you. He doesn't say anything crass. He simply says his master has a small gift to show his respect for Chief and's hard work. The gift is a heavy silk pouch. You accept it with a polite bow and deliver it to Anne, and opens it later, revealing several small gold ingots. The next day, he finds a convenient slot for the official's audience. You have just facilitated your first bribe. A small portion of that gold finds its way into your own pocket, a reward from your master for your discretion. But it's not all about such grand transactions. You discover a whole ecosystem of smaller, more peculiar opportunities for profit. For example, there's the matter of the emperor's leftover food. The imperial kitchen prepares dozens of dishes for the emperor at every meal. He might only take a single bite from a few of them. What happens to the rest officially? It's to be discarded. In reality, these nearly untouched, exquisitely prepared dishes are a valuable commodity. High-ranking eunuchs have the right to claim them. They can then eat this luxurious food themselves, or, more commonly, have it smuggled out of the palace and sold to wealthy merchants or restaurants in Beijing who prize the novelty of eating imperial leftovers. It's a lucrative, if illicit, side business. You also learn about the squeeze. Every department in the palace is given a budget for supplies, be it paper and ink for the study, new robes for the guards, or ingredients for the kitchens. The eunuch in charge of procurement, like your old master Wei, has immense power. He can squeeze the suppliers, demanding a lower price than the budget allows and pocketing the difference. Or he can accept the full budget but approve the delivery of slightly inferior goods, again keeping the surplus. It's a system of institutionalized graft, so deeply embedded that it's simply considered part of the cost of doing business with the palace. This is where historians often debate the scale and impact of this corruption. Was it a relatively harmless form of skimming off the top, a way to supplement meager official salaries, or was it a cancerous force that hollowed out dynasties from the inside in some cases? It was catastrophic. There are records of powerful eunuchs in the late Ming dynasty who embezzled so much from the military budget that frontier garrisons were left without pay or supplies, directly contributing to the dynasty's collapse in the face of rebellion. It demonstrates how the seemingly internal corruption of the palace could have devastating real-world consequences. You begin to build your own small nest egg. You save the silver you are given. You might be tasked with delivering a gift from the emperor to a favored concubine, say, a bolt of fine silk. You learn how to carefully snip a few feet off the end before delivering it, a length too small for the lady to notice, but which you can sell to a cloth merchant through a trusted contact. It's a small, risky act of theft, but it's how you accumulate capital. You hide your growing wealth carefully. You can't put it in a bank. You convert your silver and gold into more easily concealable assets, a fine piece of jade, a rare book, a high-quality inkstone. You keep these treasures hidden in a secret compartment in the floorboards of your now private, though still small, room. Wealth brings a new kind of fear. In the barracks, you feared for your Baobi, but now you fear for your money. Anyone could betray you, a jealous rival, a disgruntled subordinate. You are becoming a man of modest means. You can afford better food, better tea. You can even pay a younger eunuch a small fee to do your laundry or clean your room. You are replicating the very system of servitude that you started in. You are no longer just a survivor, you are a player. But you know that this wealth is precarious. It is not built on land or family business. It is built on favor and access, both of which can vanish in an instant if your master falls, or if the emperor's mood changes. Your treasure is a house of cards, and you live in constant fear of a sudden gust of wind. Your life is no longer your own. It is a reflection in the mirror of the emperor. As you rise through the ranks in his personal service, the lines between your duties and his daily life blur into non-existence. You are present for his most majestic moments and his most mundane ones. You are there when he puts on the heavy ceremonial dragon robes for the New Year's sacrifice, and you are there to hand him a simple silk handkerchief when he sneezes. This intimacy is the source of your influence, and it transforms you into something more than a servant or companion. The emperor you serve is not a remote deity, he is a man, burdened by the immense, crushing weight of an empire, but a man nonetheless. He has moments of boredom, of frustration, of simple human loneliness. In these moments, he may turn to you, because you are not a minister who will lecture him with Confucian platitudes, nor a consort seeking favor or political advantage. You can offer a different kind of interaction. You can be a listener, a source of distraction, a playmate. This role is a well-documented part of the eunuch experience, particularly for emperors who ascended the throne as children. A young emperor often grew up surrounded by eunuchs who were his only friends, his teachers, his confidants. They taught him to ride, to practice archery, to play games like yuju, an ancient form of football. This childhood bond oft untranslated into immense trust and reliance in adulthood. The eunuch who played games with the boy emperor became the chief advisor to the man. Your relationship with the adult emperor is more subdued, but the dynamic is similar. He might, after a grueling day of audiences, ask you to read to him from a novel, something less taxing than the endless official reports. You learned his literary taste. Does he prefer epic tales of war, or witty ghost stories? You learn to modulate your voice. to bring the characters to life, to provide a brief escape from his reality. Or perhaps he has a peculiar hobby. Some emperors were passionate carpenters. Others were obsessive clockmakers. You become his assistant in these pursuits. You learn to hand him the right chisel without being asked. You learn the names of the tiny gears and springs of the complex European clocks that fascinate him. In these moments, the formal hierarchy melts away. He is not the son of heaven and you are not a lowly servant. You are two people working on a shared project. This is a fragile, temporary equality, but it is intoxicating. It's in these private moments that you see a truly strange and obscure side of imperial life. You might be asked to help manage the palace menagerie. Many emperors kept exotic animals as pets and symbols of their power: peacocks, gibbons, even elephants. Your duties could include overseeing the feeding of the imperial cranes or ensuring the gibbons don't escape and cause chaos on the palace roofs. It's a surreal task, a bizarre intersection of immense state power and the simple work of a eunuch. The level of intimacy between an emperor and his favorite eunuch is a subject of intense speculation and debate among historians. Given the nature of the eunuch's condition, this intimacy was not physical in a romantic sense, but it could be profoundly emotional. The eunuch became the keeper of the emperor's moods, his secrets, his vulnerabilities. This is where the accusations from scholar officials often arose. They saw this emotional reliance as a weakness, a dangerous dependency that allowed the eunuch to manipulate the emperor for his own ends. Was this manipulation real, or was it simply a deep, human connection misread by jealous outsiders? The historical record is ambiguous. There are countless examples of eunuchs who clearly abused this trust, isolating the emperor from his ministers, undefectively ruling in his name. The 10 attendants of the late Han dynasty are a classic example. A cabal of eunuchs whose corruption and control over the young emperor lead to widespread rebellion. But there are also stories of genuine loyalty. Eunuchs who protected the emperor during coup attempts, who offered sober and honest advice when no one else would, who were genuinely devoted to the well-being of their master, even if it meant clashing with other powerful factions. You walk this tightrope every day. You learn to be a perfect mirror, reflecting back what the emperor needs to see. If he is in a jovial mood, you have a clever joke ready. If he is melancholic, you maintain a respectful, comforting silence. If he is angry, you make yourself as small and unobtrusive as possible, a target insignificant for his rage. You learn to anticipate his needs. You know he prefers his tea slightly cooler than most, that he has a draft on his left side when he sits at his desk, that the scent of magnolia blossoms irritates him. This knowledge makes you indispensable. It gives you a power that is subtle but profound. A minister can only advise on matters of state. You can ensure the Son of Heaven is comfortable, content, and undisturbed. In the closed world of the Forbidden City, that is a service of the highest value. You are no longer just a servant or a companion. You are a part of the Emperor's daily existence, as essential and as unnoticed as the air he breathes. Just as you reach a level of comfort and influence within the inner court, you become acutely aware of a powerful, countervailing force. It is a tide of animosity that flows from the outer court, the world of the scholar officials, the mandarins. To them, you are not a trusted companion of the emperor. You are a parasite, a cancer on the body politic. You feel their disdain in every interaction. When a high-ranking minister, a man with a long, wispy beard and robes embroidered with the silver pheasant of a high civil rank, comes to the emperor's study, he does not see you. He looks through you as if you are a pane of glass. If he must speak to you, to pass on a document or ask if the emperor is available, his voice is clipped, cold, and dripping with contempt. To him, you are an aberration, a mutilated wretch who has no right to be so close to the center of power. This conflict between the eunuch establishment and Yiting, the inner court and the civil bureaucracy, Wai Chao, The outer court is one of the most consistent and defining features of Chinese imperial history. It was a struggle for the ultimate prize, the emperor's attention and trust. The scholar officials believed they were the rightful advisors to the throne. They had spent decades studying the Confucian classics, passing the grueling civil service examinations, and earning their positions through merit in scholarship. They saw themselves as the moral and intellectual guardians of the empire. In their worldview, eunuchs were everything they were not. You were uneducated in their eyes, had gained your position through servitude and sycophancy, not intellect, and because you could not have a family, you lacked the fundamental Confucian virtue of filial piety. They argued that because you had no stake in the future, no sons or grandsons to carry on your name, you were inherently selfish and short-sighted, prone to corruption and concerned only with your own fleeting power and wealth. You experienced this ideological war on a personal level. You might deliver a message from the emperor to a ministry office. As you enter, the lively chatter among the officials immediately ceases. They stare at you with open hostility. They make you wait, deliberately ignoring you to finish a trivial task, a small act of humiliation to remind you of your place. They refer to you and your colleagues with derogatory terms, calling you Yan Feng the castrated faction or Huan Guan disaster officials. Herein lies a specific, and rather ironic, point of friction literacy. While many low-ranking eunuchs were illiterate, a significant number of those in powerful positions, like yourself, were highly educated. Some emperors deliberately established palace schools to ensure their eunuch secretaries could read, write, and even compose poetry. In some dynasties, powerful eunuchs were among the most sophisticated calligraphers and art connoisseurs of their day. This deeply offended the scholar officials. Literacy and cultural refinement were supposed to be their domain, the markers of their elite status. A eunuch who could write a more elegant poem than a minister was a profound insult to their sense of order. The historical debate around this conflict is complex. Were the scholar officials truly the noble, selfless guardians of Confucian values they claimed to be, or were they a self-interested political class, just as prone to factionalism and corruption as the eunuchs they so vehemently condemned? Modern historians tend to see the truth as far more gray. The bureaucracy was rife with its own networks of patronage, its own power struggles, and its own forms of corruption. Their high-minded rhetoric often served as a convenient weapon to attack a rival power center. The scholar officials had one weapon that you did not: the writing of history. The official court records, the veritable records of each reign, were compiled almost exclusively by them. This gave them the power to shape the historical narrative for all time. In these records, powerful eunuchs are almost universally portrayed as villains. When the empire prospered, it was due to the wise counsel of the ministers. When disaster struck, it was invariably the fault of a corrupt eunuch who had led the emperor astray. You are fighting a battle not just for influence in the present, but for your very legacy in the future. And it is a battle you are destined to lose. You learn to navigate this hostility with a carefully constructed mask of humility and deference. You are unfailingly polite to the ministers, even in the face of their insults. You bow lower than necessary. You speak in a softer voice. You never show anger or frustration. To do so would be to confirm their caricature of you as an unstable, emotional creature. Your power lies in your quiet, indispensable presence at the emperor's side. Their power lies in their control of the official apparatus of the state. It is a cold war fought in the corridors and audience halls of the Forbidden City. You know that while you may have the emperor's ear today, they have the ear of history, and it will not be kind to you. In the sterile, lonely world of the Forbidden City, a world devoid of genuine family, human connection seeks out other channels. Like water finding cracks in a stone wall, you are surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone. The camaraderie with other eunuchs is fragile, often undermined by rivalry. The intimacy with the emperor is that of a servant to a master. You crave something more, a semblance of the domestic life you were denied. You find it in a unique palace institution du aishi. The term literally translates to eating opposite, a phrase that evokes a simple, domestic image of sharing a meal. In reality, it describes a quasi-marriage, a formal partnership between a eunuch and a palace maid. It is an emotional and practical alliance, a way to create a small pocket of home and normalcy within the artificial environment of the court. You first encounter it through your master, Chifan. You notice that he often saves a portion of the best fruits or pastries that come his way. One evening, you are tasked with delivering a small, carefully wrapped package to a specific wing of the palace maid's quarters. You are met at the door by a woman in her late 30s, a senior palace maid named May. Her face is not beautiful in a classical sense, but it is kind. She takes the package from you, and the look that passes between her and Chief, and a look of quiet understanding. A shared history is something you have never seen before. They are a DUIC couple. This practice is a well-known historical fact, documented in records from at least the Han Dynasty onwards. It was an open secret, often tolerated and sometimes even tacitly approved of by the authorities. For the eunuch, they provided a companion, someone to talk to share the small triumphs and frustrations of the day with. For the palace maid, who was also forbidden to marry and doomed to spend her life in service until she was old and gray, it offered a protector, a source of extra income, and a partner to alleviate the loneliness. You decide you want this for yourself. The process is not one of romance in the conventional sense. It is more like a careful negotiation. You have your eye on a young maid named Lin, who works in the department that mends the imperial robes. You've noticed her quiet diligence, her gentle smile. You don't approach her directly. That would be improper. Instead, you use a go-between and older, respected eunuch who is friends with a senior matron in the maid's quarters. You send a gift, not something lavish, but thoughtful. A small box of high-quality tea, a pair of warm, embroidered gloves for the winter. Lynn receives the gift. She now has a choice. She can accept, or she can politely refuse. Her decision will be based on practical considerations. You are a eunuch with a good position, close to the emperor. This means you are relatively wealthy and influential. An alliance with you could make her life much easier. She could receive better food, warmer clothes, and protection from the bullying of other maids or eunuchs. After a few days of consideration, a message comes back through the go-between. She accepts. Here we come across a stranger, more intimate aspect of the DU-ISHU relationship. While it was, by its very nature, a platonic partnership, couples would strive to replicate the forms of a real marriage. You and Lin will refer to each other as husband and wife in private. You will pool your meager resources. You will have your own small living quarters, if your rank allows, or you will find ways to meet in secret corners of the palace. You will bicker over small things and comfort each other in times of sadness. It is a pantomime of married life, but the emotions involved are entirely real. The stability and acceptance of these relationships is a point of historical debate. In some eras, she was common and widely accepted. In others, ruled by more puritanical emperors or during periods of moral reform, it was cracked down upon as a decadent and improper practice. Couples caught could be severely punished, separated, and demoted, so your relationship with Lin is always tinged with a degree of risk. Your small happiness is dependent on the shifting whims of those in power. You and Lin begin your life together. You cannot see each other every day. Your duties are in different parts of the vast city, but you find ways. You might pass each other in a corridor and exchange a meaningful glance. You leave small gifts for each other in prearranged hiding spots. On a rare festival day, you might get a few hours to sit together in a quiet corner of the imperial garden, sharing a melon seed and talking about your hopes and fears. She tells you about the vicious politics of the maid's quarters, the jealousies and rivalries that mirror your own world. You tell her about the moods of the emperor, the tensions with the outer court. You are each other's confidants. You are a team. When you are sick, she will try to get medicine for you. When she is slighted by a superior, you will use your influence to have that person reassigned. This partnership fills a void in your heart you didn't know how to name. It is not the passionate love you read about in novels, but it is a deep, abiding affection and loyalty. It is a tiny, fragile flame of warmth in the cold, gilded cage of the palace. For the first time since you left your village, you feel like you have a home. Your life with Lin brings a semblance of domesticity, but there is still a profound piece missing from the picture you are trying to create. You see the scholar officials with their sons, heirs who will carry on the family name, who will perform the ancestral rites, and who will ensure their legacy. This is a future you can never have. The desire for family, for a lineage, is a powerful human impulse, and you feel its absence like a phantom whim. The solution, common among eunuchs of a certain rank and means, is to adopt. The process of adoption is another of the palace's carefully managed informalites. You cannot simply find an orphan on the streets of Beijing. The child must come from within the system. Most often, a eunuch would adopt his own nephew or a desperate relative's son from his home village, bringing him into the palace to be made a eunuch himself. This created dynasties of eunuchs, with uncles paving the way for their sons. However, you have long lost contact with your birth family, a common fate for those taken so young. Your other option is to adopt a younger, promising eunuch who is just starting his journey, much like you once did. This serves a dual purpose. It allows you to fulfill that paternal instinct, to have a son to nurture and guide. It also secures your own future. This adopted son, or yeshe, will have a filial duty to care for you in your old age, to manage your affairs, and, most importantly, to ensure your proper burial, complete with your precious baobi, so you can be reborn whole. You and Lin decide to adopt. You don't choose a brand new arrival, but a boy of about 12 named Xiaobao, little leopard, who has been in the palace for a few years. He is clever and resilient, but is an apprentice to a cruel, low-ranking master who works into the bone. You see a spark of your younger self in his eyes. You see his potential. This is a well-established historical practice. Some of the most powerful eunuchs in history, like the Ming dynasty's Wei Zongxian, built vast networks of influence by adopting dozens, even hundreds, of sons and placing them in key positions throughout the palace and the government. It was a way to create a loyal power base that mimicked the clan structures of the scholar officials they opposed. To adopt Xiaobao, you must negotiate with his current master. This is a delicate transaction. You can't just demand the boy. You approach the master with respect and gifts. You praise him for having trained such a fine apprentice. You explain that you are childless and wish to have someone to carry on your meager legacy. You offer him a substantial sum of money, a gratitude payment for his years of effort. It is, in essence, a sale. You are buying the boy's future. After some haggling, the master agrees. Xiaobao is now yours. A strange and little-known aspect of this adoption is the formal ceremony that sometimes accompanied it. It wasn't legally binding in the state's eyes, but within the eunuch community, it was sacrosanct. You might hold a small banquet in your quarters. Xiaobao would formally serve you on Lin tea, bowing and addressing you as father and mother for the first time. You would give him a new name, a generational name to signify his place in your new, created family. He is no longer Xiaobao, he is now part of your household. The nature of these adoptive relationships is a subject of academic curiosity. How closely did they mirror a real father-son bond? The evidence suggests it varied greatly. For some, it was purely a relationship of convenience and power. The father used the son as a political tool. The son feigned loyalty while waiting for a chance to usurp his father's position. But there are also many accounts suggesting genuine affection and devotion. You pour your hopes into your new son. You use your influence to get him a better position, away from manual labor. You teach him everything you know how to read and write, how to navigate the treacherous currents of court politics, how to serve, how to listen, how to be invisible. Lin mothers him, mending his clothes and ensuring he has enough to eat. You are recreating the family structure that was stolen from you. You find yourself feeling a fierce protectiveness you haven't experienced before. When a senior eunuch unfairly punishes Xiao Bao for a minor mistake, you feel a hot rage rise within you. You don't confront the senior eunuch directly, that would be foolish. Instead, you use your knowledge, the secrets you've overheard in the emperor's study. You let slip a subtle, anonymous tip to a rival of that senior eunuch, exposing a small misdeed. The senior eunuch is soon reprimanded and distracted, and he forgets all about Xiao Bao. You have protected your son using the weapons of your world's secrets and whispers. In the evenings, the three of you, Lin, and Xiao Bao might gather in your small room. It's a strange, cobbled-together family: a eunuch, a palace maid, and an adopted eunuch son. You are a complete contradiction of every Confucian family ideal. Yet, in this small room, sharing a bowl of roasted chestnuts, there is a warmth and love that feels more real than anything else in the Forbidden City. You have built your own fragile dynasty against all odds. Life inside the Forbidden City is a relentless grind of work, duty, and political maneuvering. The tension is a constant, low hum beneath the surface of the court's serene facade. Yet, even in this gilded cage, moments of leisure and distraction are not just a luxury. They are a vital psychological necessity. You and your fellow eunuchs have your own forms of entertainment, ways to briefly escape the crushing weight of your existence. As a mid to high-ranking eunuch, you now have a small amount of disposable income and, more importantly, occasional pockets of free time. One of the most popular pastimes is opera. The palace has its own dedicated troupe of actors, and performances are frequently staged for the imperial family. While you are not part of the primary audience, senior eunuchs are often allowed to watch from the sidelines or from less conspicuous parts of the theater. You develop a taste for the dramatic tales of heroes, ghosts, and lovers, a world of grand emotions so different from your own constrained reality. You and your colleagues will discuss the performances for days. Who was the most compelling actor? Was the singing up to par? This appreciation for opera is a well-documented part of palace life. Some powerful eunuchs even became patrons of famous actors, lavishing them with gifts and using their influence to promote their careers. It was a way to participate in the cultural life of the elite, to demonstrate a level of refinement beyond that of a mere servant. An even more common and accessible form of entertainment is gambling. Despite being officially forbidden and periodically subject to harsh crackdowns, gambling is rampant throughout the eunuchs' quarters. It's a way to combat the mind-numbing boredom. You see eunuchs huddled in corners, rolling dice made of bone, playing cards, or betting on domino games. The stakes can range from a few copper coins to a month's salary. It's a dangerous habit. You've seen eunuchs who have lost everything, forced to sell their meager possessions and go into debt to more powerful figures, becoming their virtual slaves. You partake occasionally, but cautiously, preferring a less risky diversion. Your personal favorite, and a surprisingly widespread obsession in the palace, is cricket fighting. This is a pastime that cuts across all social strata, from the emperor himself down to the lowest-ranking guards. But for eunuchs, it holds a special appeal. It is a miniature world of combat and glory that you can control. You spend hours searching the palace gardens for a promising champion, a cricket with a strong chirp and powerful-looking jaws. Here we encounter the strange and specific culture surrounding this hobby. A prize cricket is treated with absurd reverence. It is housed in its own specially crafted clay or gourd pot. It is fed a diet of honey, mosquito larvae, and chewed chestnuts, which you have to chew yourself to the perfect consistency. Before a fight, you train your cricket. Using a fine mouse whisker attached to a stick tickle its antennae and provoke its aggression. It's an art form, a science, and a deep obsession. You and your friends will gather for matches. 2 crickets are placed in a clay arena. The owners use their tickling sticks to prod them towards each other. The fight is a flurry of chirps, bites, and wrestling, usually over in seconds. Money is wagered, but for you, it's more about the pride. The owner of the champion cricket earns bragging rights that are taken very seriously. The debates about the merits of different crickets, their fighting styles, and their bloodlines are as intense as any discussion of court politics. This passion for cricket fighting among eunuchs is a fascinating historical footnote that scholars sometimes analyze for deeper meaning. Is it a sublimation of their own frustrated ambitions and lack of physical agency in this tiny arena? They can be generals, strategists, and owners of victorious champions. It's a proxy battle, a safe outlet for the competitive and aggressive impulses that cannot be expressed elsewhere. Beyond these organized activities, you find pleasure in simpler things. You might cultivate a small, potted plum blossom tree outside your window, taking pride in its delicate blooms. Or you might learn to play a simple melody on a bamboo flute, the lonely sound echoing in your small room late at night. Some eunuchs become avid collectors of curiosities, unusually shaped rocks, rare bird feathers, or intricate snuff bottles. These small hobbies are lifelines. They are a way to assert your individuality in a system designed to erase it. They are a declaration that even within the rigid confines of the palace walls, you can still create a small space of personal joy and meaning. You, your wife Lin, and your son Xiao Bao might spend a rare free evening together. You won't be doing anything grand. You might just sit, watch the moon rise over the yellow tiled roofs, and share a story. You might show Xiao Bao your prize-winning cricket, and for a moment, the 3 of you are just a family, enjoying a quiet evening. These fleeting moments of peace are what sustain you. They are the fuel that allows you to face another day on the relentless treadmill of palace life. For years, the Forbidden City has been your entire world. Its red walls and yellow roofs have defined the boundaries of your existence. But as you gain rank and trust, you are occasionally granted the rare privilege of leaving the palace on an official errand. The first time you step through the gates and into the bustling streets of Beijing, it is a profound and jarring shock. Inside the palace, you are a person of some consequence. You are Chief An's trusted aide. You have a family, a home, a position. Younger eunuchs bow to you. But the moment you are outside, all of that status vanishes. In the chaotic, vibrant world of the city, you are identified by one thing and one thing only. You are a eunuch. And that makes you an object of scorn, ridicule, and a strange, almost superstitious fear. This is the harsh reality of a eunuch's social standing, a core historical fact. While you might wield immense influence within the palace, you are a social pariah outside of it. As you walk down the street in your official robes, which clearly mark you as a servant of the court, the crowd parts. Mothers pull their children closer, whispering for them to look away. Men stare with open contempt, sometimes spitting on the ground as you pass. You hear the muttered insults, the same ones the officials use, but now they are spoken by common laborers and merchants. They see you as unnatural, gilded almond. You feel a profound sense of dislocation. The city is a sensory overload. The smells of street food, livestock, and open drains mingle in the air. The sounds of vendors hawking their wares, children shouting, and the rumble of cart wheels on stone are a deafening cacophony after the curated silence of the inner court. Everything is so alive, so messy, so full of the ordinary human interactions you are forever barred from. You see a father lift his son onto his shoulders. You see a young couple holding hands. Each of these simple, everyday scenes is a small dagger to your heart. Here's a specific and cruel detail of the public's perception of you. There was a common superstition that looking directly at a eunuch could bring bad luck, or even affect a man's virility. This is why people avert their eyes or glare with hostility. It's a mixture of social prejudice and deep-seated folk belief. You are not just a person, you are a walking, talking talisman of misfortune. You try to carry yourself with dignity, to hold your head high. But the weight of 1,000 hostile stares is a physical burden. Your errand perhaps to deliver a message to a government ministry in the outer city or to procure a specific item for the emperor from a specialty shop feels like running a gauntlet. You complete your task as quickly as possible, your only desire to return to the relative safety of the palace walls. The complex and contradictory nature of eunuch social status is a topic historians continue to explore. How could a group be so powerful and so despised at the same time? This paradox is key to understanding their role. Their power was entirely derivative. It came from the emperor alone. It was not rooted in social respect, land ownership, or family lineage, which were the traditional sources of prestige in Chinese society. They were a third gender, a separate class that existed outside the established norms, and this made them deeply unsettling to the social order. Some eunuchs, especially the extremely wealthy and powerful ones, tried to counteract this social stigma by engaging in extravagant displays of public piety and charity. They would fund the construction of magnificent temples, particularly Buddhist and Taoist ones, outside the palace. These temples, often built in scenic areas in the hills surrounding Beijing, served multiple purposes. They were a genuine expression of faith, a way to accumulate spiritual merit for the afterlife. They were also a form of public relations, a way to show the populace that they were pious and generous. And, crucially, they often served as retirement homes, places where old, childless eunuchs could live out their final years in a community of their peers. Your own master, Qi Fan, is a major patron of one such temple, and he encourages you to donate a portion of your income to its upkeep. It is an investment in your future and your soul. As you hurry back towards the gate of divine might, the noise of the city fades behind you. The moment you step back across the threshold into the forbidden city, the weight lifts from your shoulders. Here, the rules are twisted and the hierarchies are strange, but at least you know them. You know your place. Here, you are not just a freak. At home, you are someone. The irony is crushing. The prison has become your sanctuary. You have escaped the contempt of the outside world, but only by returning to your gilded cage. As you navigate your own small world of influence, you are constantly aware of the long, deep shadows cast by the giants of your kind. The history of the empire is punctuated by the names of eunuchs who rose from origins as humble as your own to become towering figures, wielding power that eclipsed even the most senior ministers. Their stories are whispered in the corridors, serving as both cautionary tales and sources of boundless ambition. You hear the name of Xiao Gao, the villain of the Qin dynasty from over 1,000 years ago. He is the archetypal evil eunuch. The story of how he forced the heir to the throne to commit suicide and installed a puppet emperor is legendary. You've heard the famous tale of him pointing at a deer and calling it a horse. He brought a deer to court and declared it was a horse, and the terrified officials, fearing his power, all agreed. It's a parable about absolute power in the corruption of truth. And Xiao Gao's name is still used as a byword for a treacherous, manipulative courtier. Then there is the more recent and far more complex figure of Zheng He from the Ming dynasty. His story is one you and other eunuchs cling to as a source of pride. Like you, he was not born into the elite. He was a boy from a Muslim family in the south, captured in war and made a eunuch. But through his intelligence, loyalty, and formidable skill, he became the trusted confidant of the Yonghua emperor. The emperor did not confine him to the palace. He made him an admiral. Zheng He commanded a fleet of gigantic treasure ships, the largest the world had ever seen, on 7 epic voyages to the Indian Ocean, reaching as far as the coast of Africa. He was a diplomat, a military commander, and an explorer who projected the might of the Ming dynasty across the world. His story is proof that a eunuch could be more than a servant. He could be a figure of global historical importance. These two figures, Xiao Gao and Zheng He, represent the two poles of how eunuchs are remembered in mainstream history, the scheming villain and the rare, brilliant exception. They are the simplified, larger-than-life versions of the eternal struggle you face. But the name that resonates most in the corridors of your time, the one that inspires both fear and a kind of grudging awe, is Wei Zhongxian. He lived only a generation or two before you, in the dying days of the Ming Dynasty, and his story is a masterclass in the acquisition and abuse of power. He was an illiterate ruffian who entered the palace late in life to escape gambling debts. Through sheer charisma, ruthlessness, and an uncanny ability to ingratiate himself with the young, carpentry-obsessed Yan Qi Emperor, he rose to become the most powerful man in the empire. You hear the details of his reign of terror. He created a network of spies and secret police that hunted down his political opponents, the scholar officials of the Donglin faction. He had them arrested, tortured in horrific ways, and executed. He purged the bureaucracy of anyone who dared to oppose him. At the height of his power, he was known as the 9,900 Years, a title that placed him just below the emperor, who was the 10,000 years. Temples were built in his honor all across China, filled with statues of him, essentially defying him while he was still alive. This is a bizarre and singular detail the widespread, states ancient worship of a living eunuch. The ultimate fate of these powerful figures is a constant topic of debate and analysis among historians. What allows a eunuch to accumulate such immense power? The consensus points to a specific set of circumstances: a weak, disinterested, or very young emperor who is willing to delegate vast authority to a trusted subordinate. In these power vacuums, a charismatic and politically astute eunuch, who already controls access to the emperor and the flow of information, is perfectly positioned to become a de facto ruler. However, the debate continues over their legitimacy. Were figures like Wei Zhongxian simply corrupt usurpers, as the traditional narrative holds, or were they, in their own way, trying to govern, using the only tools and power base available to them? Some revisionist historians argue that Wei, for all his brutality, was also a capable administrator who promoted certain economic policies and tried to counter the growing power of the very scholar official class that so despised him. Was his tyranny a twisted form of state building, or just naked self-interest? The question remains contentious. You look at your own life. You are not a Xiao Gao, poisoning the political well. You are certainly not a Zheng He, commanding fleets, and you shudder at the excesses of Wei Zhongxian. But you understand the path. You understand how the daily accumulation of secrets, the careful cultivation of favor, and the absolute reliance on the emperor's trust can become a ladder. Wei Zhongxian's story is a chilling reminder of how high that ladder can go and how precipitous the fall can be. When his patron, the Qi Emperor, died, Wei's enemies pounced. He was forced to commit suicide. His network was dismantled, and his name was entered into the history books as one of its greatest monsters. These stories are more than just history to you. They are a roadmap of possibilities and perils. They remind you that in your world, there is no comfortable middle ground. The choice is between quiet, anonymous servitude or a perilous climb toward a power that is absolute but terrifyingly fragile. You are growing older. The face that looks back at you from the polished bronze mirror is a map of your life in the palace. The boyish smoothness of your youth has given way to a network of fine lines around your eyes and mouth. Your hair, once thick and black, is now streaked with gray. You have survived, even prospered. You have a comfortable position, the respect of your subordinates, the quiet companionship of Lin, and the filial devotion of your adopted son. Xiao Bao, that your body, the vessel that has carried you through this strange life, is beginning to betray you. The chronic ailments that plague older eunuchs are no longer abstract stories. They are your daily reality. Your bones ache with a deep, persistent pain, a symptom of the osteoporosis that makes every step a calculated risk. You rise from a chair slowly, cautiously, fearing the sudden, sharp pain of a fracture. You have seen older eunuchs become permanently bedridden after a simple fall. This physical fragility is a well-understood medical consequence of lifelong hormonal deprivation, a consistent finding in both historical records and modern analysis. But there is another, more humiliating affliction that you must now confront. One that is whispered about in hushed tones but rarely acknowledged openly: incontinence. The surgery you endured as a child was a brutal act of tissue removal and reconstruction. While the knife man was skilled, the healing process is imperfect. Over decades, the scar tissue and weakened muscles around the urethra can lose their integrity. It starts subtly, a small leak when you cough or lift something heavy. You try to ignore it, to dismiss it as a fluke, but it gradually worsens. You find yourself constantly planning your day around the location of the nearest toilet. You live in a state of low grade, constant anxiety, terrified of an accident, of the telltale dampness on your robes, of the smell that would bring unbearable shame. This condition is one of the most poignant and least discussed aspects of a eunuch's life. It was a secret misery that eroded the dignity of even the most powerful men. To manage it, you resort to a series of discreet, desperate measures. You wear thick, padded undergarments, essentially adult diapers made of cotton wadding and silk, which are hot and uncomfortable. You limit your intake of fluids, even when you are thirsty, bringing back the ghost of that terrible thirst you endured during your recovery as a boy. Here we find a truly sad and ingenious folk remedy that some eunuchs employed to prevent leakage, particularly at night. Some would tie a small, pliable piece of string or a silk ribbon around themselves. It was a makeshift clamp, a physical barrier against their own body's betrayal. The logistics of this are heartbreakingly complex. It had to be tight enough to be effective, but not so tight as to cause injury or complete blockage. It's a testament to the lengths you would go to in order to maintain a facade of normalcy and control. The psychological toll of this condition is immense. It makes you feel like a child again, helpless and not in control of your own body. It undermines the authority and gravitas you have spent a lifetime cultivating. How can you command the respect of your subordinates when you are terrified of a sudden cough? This hidden ailment fuels a constant debate among historians about the emotional state of aging eunuchs. Were they bitter, angry figures, their personalities warped by decades of physical and emotional pain, or did they find a way to age with a kind of resigned grace, accepting their fate? The historical stereotype, pushed by their rivals, often portrays them as irascible, paranoid old men. But personal accounts and more empathetic interpretations suggest a different story, one of a deep, pervasive melancholy. The loss of dignity was perhaps the cruelest cut of all. Your wife, Lynn, is your greatest comfort. She helps you without a word of judgment, washing your clothes, preparing special absorbent padding for you. Her quiet, practical care is an act of profound love. Your son, Xiaobao, who is now a capable young man in his own right, also helps, treating you with a respect that never wavers, pretending not to notice your struggles. Their support is the only thing that makes this final indignity bearable. You look at the powerful, aging Qifan, your former master, who walks with a stiff, pained gait and whose face is often tight with discomfort. You see the same secret fear in his eyes. You are all members of the same secret brotherhood of suffering. You have climbed the ladder. You have gained wealth and influence. You have created a family of your own. But you cannot escape the fundamental, inescapable consequences of that single choice, made in a dusty room so many decades ago. The knife's work is never truly finished. It continues to cut away at you, piece by piece, until the very end. The shadows are lengthening in the courtyards of your life. You have seen emperors come and go. You have seen favorites rise and fall like autumn leaves. Now, Your primary preoccupation is no longer the accumulation of wealth or power, but the careful preparation for its end. For a eunuch, death is not just a biological event, it is the final, critical, administrative, and spiritual task of your life. It is the one for which you have been preparing since the day you first held your BI box. Your main goal is to ensure a complete burial. This concept is the cornerstone of your afterlife beliefs. You must be buried as a whole person to be reborn as a whole man. This means that your preserved treasure, which you have guarded so carefully for decades, must be reunited with your body in the coffin. This belief is a widely accepted historical fact, a powerful driver of a eunuch's behavior in his later years. You take your BI box down from the high shelf where it has rested for so long. The lacquer is still dark and shiny. You open it, perhaps for the first time in years. The sealed jars, it's on its bed of faded red silk. This object, a symbol of your profound loss, has paradoxically become your ticket to restoration. You entrust it to your adopted son, Xiaobao. His most sacred filial duty will be to ensure this jar is placed correctly in your coffin when the time comes. This is why you adopted him. This is the ultimate purpose of the family you have built. Your second major concern is your burial plot. You cannot be buried in your ancestral village. You are an outcast from that lineage. So like many successful eunuchs, you have spent a considerable amount of your savings to purchase a plot in the cemetery of a temple you have patronized. These eunuch cemeteries, located in the hills outside Beijing, are a unique feature of the landscape. The most famous of these is the temple at Taiyani, which still stands today, a testament to the lives and legacies of the men buried there. You travel with Xiaobao to inspect the site. It is a peaceful place, shaded by cypress and pine trees. You see the tombs of other eunuchs, some grand and ornate, with carved stelae detailing their service to the throne, others more modest. You have already commissioned your own tombstone. You review the inscription with the stonemason. It will list your name, your rank, the emperors you serve. It is a final, quiet assertion of your existence, a last attempt to write your own history before the scholar officials write it for you. Here we encounter a more peculiar and debated aspect of eunuch funerary practices, the soul-calling ritual. Some accounts suggest that at the moment of a eunuch's death, a relative or a priest would climb onto the roof of his house, holding an article of his clothing, and call out his name, urging his spirit to return to the body for its journey to the underworld. This was a common folk practice, but for eunuchs, it had a special poignancy. Was the spirit more likely to wander? Being incomplete, historians debate whether this was a standard eunuch practice or simply an extension of broader popular religion. The idea of your name being called out one last time, a plea for your scattered descendants to come together, is a powerful and mournful image. You also spend time putting your worldly affairs in order. You write a will. Your accumulated wealth, the silver, the jade, the fine robes will be passed down to Xiaobao and Lin. You set aside a significant sum to be donated to the temple that will house your grave, ensuring that the monks will continue to perform rites for your soul and maintain your tomb for years to come. This is your version of ensuring the continuation of ancestral worship. Your relationship with your son Xiaobao deepens during this time. He is no longer just your apprentice or your charge, he is your executor, the anchor of your legacy. You share with him stories of your youth, of the masters you served, of the political intrigues you witnessed. You are passing down your history, your lived experience, and the only way you can through oral tradition. You are entrusting him not just with your bones, but with your memory. There is a quiet dignity in these preparations. You are facing the end not with terror, but with a kind of meticulous, administrative calm. Your entire life has been about service, about following rules, about fulfilling duties. Death is simply the final duty. You have managed your career, your finances, your family. Now you are managing your exit. You have done everything in your power to ensure that you will leave this world in the proper way. With all the pieces in place, you have secured your tomb, paid for your prayers, and entrusted your treasure to your son. All that is left is to wait. The day finally comes when the palace releases its hold on you. It is not a grand retirement ceremony, but a quiet, administrative process. You are old, your movements are slow, and your memory is not what it once was. You are no longer useful to the ever-churning machine of the imperial court. You are granted permission to Gaolao Huanxiang, to announce old agent return to the village, but you have no village to return to, for you. And for most eunuchs like you, retirement means moving to a temple on the outskirts of Beijing. You choose to spend your final years at the Temple of Celestial Repose, the one you and Chiefin have so generously patronized. Your son, Xiao Bao, who is now a man of some standing in the palace himself, arranges the transport. You say your goodbyes to Lin, who is still in service and cannot leave. It is a quiet, tearful farewell, a promise to see each other when she can get leave. You leave the Forbidden City for the last time, not as an official on an errand, but as a relic being put into storage. The temple is a world away from the palace. It is quiet, nestled in a grove of ancient pines. The air smells of incense and damp earth, not of intrigue and perfume. Here, you are surrounded by men who are just like you. The residents are all former eunuchs, men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. They are a brotherhood of survivors, each one a living library of palace history. This is the common historical trajectory for eunuchs who lived to old age or retreat into a communal, monastic-like setting with their peers. Your days fall into a new, slower rhythm. You wake to the sound of temple bells, not the urgent summons of a superior. You spend your mornings in quiet meditation or listening to the monks chant sutras. The afternoons are for socializing. You and the other old eunuchs sit in the sun-drenched courtyard, drinking tea, playing chess, and, most importantly, telling stories. The conversations are a living history of the dynasty. One man remembers serving the old Empress Dowager. Another has tales of a disastrous military campaign from 50 years ago. You share your own stories of the emperor's study, of the ministers you outwitted. In this enclosed world, your shared experience is the common currency. There is no judgment here, no scorn. Everyone understands the unique path you have all walked. A peculiar aspect of this retirement life is the obsession with health and longevity remedies. Having cheated a natural life path, you are all now fiercely determined to extend the one you have. You trade herbal recipes. One man swears by ginseng soup, another by a specific Taoist breathing exercise. There's a constant, low-level competition to see who is the spryest, who can still walk to the top of the nearby hill. It is a gentle, final echo of the intense competition that defined your lives in the palace. But this peaceful existence is a fragile one, and it's here that historians debate the true nature of these eunuch retirement homes. Were they serene sanctuaries, as they appeared on the surface, or were the old hierarchies and rivalries of the palace simply recreated on a smaller scale? The evidence suggests it was a mixture. While there was genuine community, old grudges could fester. The eunuch who was once your superior in the palace might still demand a certain deference. The wealth you accumulated still dictates your quality of life. The eunuchs with more money can afford better rooms, better food, and personal attendants, often poor novices from the temple. The poorer ones live in more Spartan conditions, dependent on the temple's charity. The palace caste system, it seems, has followed you into retirement. You live a life of quiet contemplation, but you are also haunted by the past. In the silence of the temple, the memories you've held at bay for decades come flooding back. You remember your mother's weeping face. You remember the searing pain of the knife. You remember the faces of men use or Eisenfall. You wonder if the price you paid was worth it. Did you say to your family? You have no way of knowing. You have sent money back to your village through couriers for years, but you never received a reply. There goes to you now, as you are to them. Xiao Bao visits you regularly. He brings you news from the palace, news that now seems distant and unimportant. He brings you your favorite pastries. He is a good son. He assures you that everything is in order for your final arrangements. His visits are the brightest spots in your quiet life. They are proof that you did not live for nothing, that you created a bond that will outlast you. You sit in the courtyard, the sun warming your aching bones, and watch the dust motes dance in the air. You are out of the game, a spectator now. You have survived, and in the end, perhaps that is the only victory that matters. The peaceful, predictable rhythm of your temple retirement is shattered by news from the capital. It arrives with your son, Xiao Bao, whose face is etched with a fear you have not seen since he was a young boy. The emperor, your long-time master and protector, is dead. He fell ill suddenly, a fever that the imperial physicians could not quell. His eldest son, a young man known for his fiery temper and his close association with the faction of reformist scholar officials, has ascended the dragon throne. A cold dread settles in your old, brittle bones. You know what this means. You have seen this happen before. Yi Chao Yunzi Yi Chao Chen, one dynasty's emperor, one dynasty's court. Every new ruler brings his own people, his own favorites, and a new emperor who is allied with the mandarins will inevitably mean one thing: a purge of the old guard, especially the powerful eunuchs who served his father. This is a recurring pattern in Chinese history. The fall of a powerful eunuch, or an entire eunuch faction, is almost always precipitated by the death of their imperial patron. Their power is so intimately tied to one individual that when that individual is gone, their foundation turns to sand. The enemies they have made over the decades, particularly among the scholar officials, are suddenly free to exact their revenge. Xiao Bao confirms your fears. The new emperor has already issued a series of edicts. Your old master, the venerable Chief An, has been stripped of all his titles. He is under house arrest. His wealth is being inventoried for confiscation, and he is being investigated for corruption. The charges are a formality. The verdict is already written. Men you have known for 50 years, men who were the unshakable pillars of the inner court just weeks ago, are being systematically removed, demoted, or exiled. The purge extends even to you, a retiree in a remote temple. An imperial decree arrives, read aloud by a stern-faced official from the Ministry of Rights. By order of the emperor, your titles are revoked, your pension is cancelled, your name is being struck from the records of meritorious service. It is a symbolic humiliation, an attempt to erase you from the history you so carefully built. Thankfully, your private wealth, which you wisely transferred to Xiao Bao years ago, is safe for now, but you are officially a disgraced person. Here we see a specific, cruel mechanism of these purges: the posthumous condemnation. The new regime doesn't just punish the living, it punishes the dead. You hear that the new emperor has ordered the lavish tomb of a recently deceased, powerful eunuch to be desecrated. His honorary titles are posthumously stripped, his name tablet removed from the Temple of Honor. This was a terrifying prospect for all eunuchs, as it threatened not just their earthly legacy but their peace in the afterlife. It's a point of historical debate whether these acts were driven by genuine moral outrage at the eunuch's corruption, or if they were primarily political theater, a way for the new emperor to consolidate power and signal a break with his father's reign. The atmosphere in your temple changes overnight. The quiet camaraderie is replaced by a thick cloud of fear and suspicion. Who will be next? Will the purges reach this far? Men who once boasted of their closeness to the late emperor now fall silent. Old rivalries flare anew as some eunuchs try to curry favor with the new regime by denouncing their peers. The sanctuary has become a prison of anxiety. You fear for Xiao Bao. As your adopted son and a member of the old eunuch establishment, he is in a precarious position. When he visits, it is now in secret. At night, he tells you he is trying to be as invisible as possible, serving his new, junior-level masters with impeccable humility, hoping the storm will pass over him. You advise him with all the political wisdom you have accumulated over a lifetime. Be a rock in the river. You tell him, let the current flow around you. Do not show ambition. Do not show resentment. Just be useful and silent. Your life has been a long, calculated climb, a careful game of balancing on a tightrope. Now, at the very end, the rope has been cut. Everything you worked for, your rank, your honor, your recognized place in the palace hierarchy has been stripped away by the stroke of a pen. You are once again what you were as a small boy and nobody, a person without status. The irony is bitter. You dedicated your entire existence to serving the imperial institution, sacrificing your body and your identity for it. And in the end, that same institution has cast you aside like a broken tool. Use it in the courtyard. No longer a respected elder, but a disgraced relic. You watch the sun set behind the hills, and you wonder if your tombstone will even be allowed to stand. The new emperor's reign, which began with such fire and fury against your kind, is itself a flickering candle in the wind. The world outside your temple walls is changing in ways that are far more profound than the usual shifts in court politics. From across the sea, strange men with pale faces and powerful weapons have come, chipping away at the empire's borders. In the countryside, rebellions fester, fueled by famine and discontent. The dynasty itself, the bedrock of your entire world for centuries, is crumbling. You are an old man, detached from the daily news, but you hear the whispers from visitors and new arrivals at the temple. The imperial court is in chaos. The treasury is empty. The sophisticated system of governance you knew, with its intricate rules and delicate power balances between eunuchs and officials, has broken down. The new emperor, for all his bluster, is powerless to stop the decay. One day, the unthinkable happens. News arrives, carried by panicked refugees from the capital, that the forbidden city, the sacred, inviolable heart of the world has fallen. A revolutionary army has breached the walls. The last emperor, a child who was placed on the throne as a final, desperate measure, has abdicated. The dynasty is over. The dragon throne is empty. The institution of the palace eunuch, which had existed for over 2,000 years, is abolished overnight. It is declared a decadent, feudal relic of a bygone era. The remaining eunuchs still in the palace, including your son Jiaobao, are formally expelled. They are given a tiny severance pay and cast out into a world that has no place for them. This moment marks the historical end of the eunuch system in China. With the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1912, the few hundred remaining eunuchs were suddenly unemployed. Their entire social structure and reason for being wiped out. They became living anachronisms, ghosts of a dead empire. Xiaobao arrives at your temple, not as a visitor, but as a refugee. He is weary, defeated, and lost. He tells you of the final days, the chaos, the fear, the final, humiliating exit through the same service gates you once entered as a boy. He, and hundreds like him, were simply turned out onto the streets of Beijing. A strange, final chapter begins for your community. The temple, once a quiet retirement home, becomes a crowded sanctuary for these displaced eunuchs. They are men of all ages, from old retainers like yourself to young men who had only just begun their careers. They have nowhere else to go. The outside world is alien to them, and their unique physical condition and palace training make them ill-suited for any other kind of work. They are objects of public curiosity and ridicule, relics of the hated old regime. A peculiar problem arises the fate of the Bao Bii. In the chaos of the expulsion, many of the younger eunuchs lost or were separated from their precious jars. They arrive at the temple in a state of spiritual panic, terrified that they are now doomed to an incomplete afterlife. A bizarre, macabre market even emerges for a short time, with opportunistic dealers trying to sell generic preserved remains to desperate eunuchs. A fraudulent last-ditch effort to secure a whole burial. This strange episode is a point of debate for historians. Was it a widespread phenomenon or an exaggerated tale? Regardless, it highlights the profound psychological importance of this final ritual. You are now the keeper of the flame. As one of the oldest and most respected members of this strange, final community, you become a living historian. The younger eunuchs, who have lost their connection to the past, flock to you. They ask you to tell them stories of the palace in its glory days. They want to hear about the grand ceremonies, the powerful emperors, the way things were supposed to be. You sit in the courtyard, a frail old man surrounded by men with no future, and you tell them about your life. You tell them about the rules, the rituals, the traditions. You are preserving a world that has already vanished. You are the last link in a chain of oral history that stretches back for centuries. From master to apprentice, from shifu to tudi. The end of the eunuch system was not a clean break. It was a slow, sad, fading away. This last generation, stranded by the tides of history, mostly lived out their lives in poverty and obscurity in these temple communities. They were the final, mournful footnote to a 2,000-year-old story. You have outlived the empire you serve. You have outlived the very system that created you. You are a survivor of a shipwreck, washed ashore on a strange new land. All that is left is your memory, your stories, and the quiet community of your fellow castaways, all waiting together for the end. The seasons blur. The pines outside your window grow a little shaggier. The stone steps a little smoother from the shuffling feet of old men. You are bedridden now, a fragile boat moored in the final harbor. Your world has shrunk to the confines of your small room, to the view of the sky through the paper lattice of your window. Xiao Bao is with you every day. He is a man in his prime, but his face carries the weariness of a world you no longer belong to. He spoons then warm candy into your mouth, the same way you once fed your own master. Wait, the cycle of service continues, even to at the end. Your brothers, the other old eunuchs, come to visit. They don't stay long. They stand by your bedside in silence, their wrinkled faces masks of shared understanding. There is nothing to say. They are looking at their own future. Each of them has a story etched into their face, a story of loss, survival, and service. They are the last chapter of a book that is now closed. When they leave, they don't say goodbye. They just give a slight, slow nod. We will see you soon. In the quiet moments, as you drift between waking and sleep, your mind travels back. It doesn't dwell on the great events, on the emperors or the ministers. It skips over the pain and the fear. Instead, it lands on small, sharp-edged memories. The rough texture of your father's coat on your cheek as he carried you on his back. The taste of a persimmon given to you by Len, so sweet it made your teeth ache. The sound of Xiao Bao's laughter when you showed him a fighting cricket. These are the small, human moments that form the real architecture of your life, the beams that held up the grand, hollow structure of your career. This is the common fate of the last generation of eunuchs, a quiet fading in the charity of a temple. Their memories the only treasure they have left. The grand narrative of history, written by the scholar officials, will remember your kind as a monolithic evil corrupt, greedy, and power-hungry. They will be the villains in the story of dynastic decline. This is the mainstream historical judgment, cemented by centuries of hostile press. But a strange, final ritual remains, one that defies that grand narrative and focuses on your individual soul. As your breathing grows shallow, Xiao Bao begins his last, most important duty. He has the box. After you draw your last, quiet breath, he washes your frail body with a cloth soaked in warm, scented water. He dresses you in the finest silk robes you had set aside decades ago. Then, with the utmost reverence, he takes the sealed jar from its lacquered box. He doesn't place it randomly in the coffin, following the old tradition, a tradition known only to your kind. He places the jar in your hands and folds them over your lower abdomen. It is a symbolic act of making you whole again, of physically reuniting what was severed. The body is arranged, complete at last, ready for its journey. Your funeral is a simple affair. A few monks chant the sutras. Their voice is a low drone that seems to comfort the living more than the dead. Xiao Bao. Lin, who has traveled from the city, and a handful of your old brothers followed the simple wooden coffin. You are laid to rest in the tomb you prepared, under the shade of the pines. The sound of earth hitting the coffin lid is a soft, final punctuation. And here, at your graveside, is where the final academic debate begins. Who were you? The question echoes in the quiet cemetery. For centuries, the answer was simple: you were a monster. A necessary evil at best, a cancerous growth at worst. But modern historians, looking back with a different lens, see a more complex picture. They see the desperate poverty that fed the system. They analyze the profound psychological trauma of the castration itself. They see you not just as political actors, but as a unique, marginalized social group, a third gender with its own culture, its own hierarchies, its own strategies for survival. Were some eunuchs corrupt and cruel? Absolutely. Just as some scholar officials were. Were others loyal, capable administrators, and patrons of the arts? The evidence says yes. The final verdict of history on you and your kind is that there can be no single verdict. You were a paradox, a powerless man who could command armies, a servant who could rule an empire, a social outcast who lived at the very center of the world. You were a product of a brutal system, and you played the hand you were dealt with cunning, loyalty, and a desperate human need for a life of meaning. Your simple tombstone, with its fading characters, is a testament not to good or evil, but to a life of profound and painful complexity. The story is over now. The last handful of earth has fallen, and the pines in the temple cemetery whisper in the wind. The world of the Forbidden City, with its red walls and golden roofs, fades back into the mist of history. The tension, the fear, the constant striving, it can all be released. It can all settle, like dust on old furniture in a room no one has entered for a very long time. You can feel the weight of your own blanket, the softness of your own pillow. The quiet hum of the fan is not the sound of whispered secrets in a palace corridor. It is just a sound, a gentle, steady rhythm to carry you into sleep. The journey we took tonight was a long one, down a dark and winding path, but it has led you here, to the quiet safety of your own bed. Let the edges of your thoughts grow soft. Let the story dissolve into feelings, into images without names. A flash of yellow tile in the sun, the scent of old incense, the silent, shuffling steps of 1,000 servants. They are no longer a narrative, just drifting fragments in the warm, quiet space before sleep. Perhaps in your dream tonight, you will not see the old eunuch in his temple. Perhaps you will see a little boy, 7 or 8 years old, running through a field of wheat under a wide, blue sky. He is whole, he is happy, and he is free. He doesn't know the name of the emperor. He only knows the warmth of the sun on his face. Let that be the final image, a quiet restoration, a gentle peace. Rest now. The end of the article. Good night.